You're live.
Uh, cool. So let's get started with the futures and the futures after that big dump. Trying to recover, I think futures stopped here towards the end of the day. It pushed.
Lost your audio. Your mic's muted.
Right. So the futures towards the end of the day, it bounced a little bit, but then that bounce was not sustainable. Futures started coming down. I'm expecting the futures to most likely hit 40, 20, 41, 20 or something like that. Then again, ephemeral bounce, most likely push into this number, 41.64. But right now, I wouldn't be bothered so much with the futures. Obviously, here you can see it's oversold conditions, and the most likely an ephemeral bounce is coming. 41.37, probably then 41.50. Then the mean on the 1 hour is sitting at around here 41.97, give or take 42, but not really looking to get that big of a bounce as of where things stand. 5, 8, and if it comes all the way till 41.77, then we will look to reconsider the upside. But for now, not really looking anything beyond 41.75, or even I'm not looking at anything beyond 41.50 right now because my sentiment has soured super hard. And 4 hours, there's it has created a gap here. So if I go by the theory that this gap within the price, from the price and its moving average, this gap needs to be filled at some point in time. This will get filled. Here, this is where futures bounce off of. So looking for this number all the way throughout, and futures exactly bounce off of that number. We'll see this again on SPX as well. And the general direction is still to the downside for the futures and as well as the markets. I believe that there's nothing telling us right now that there are no technicals telling us that a bounce is coming, or this is still intact to the downside. So I would still expect maybe an ephemeral bounce to this 41.74 or something, but then after that, I think it will continue to push down. And what is this guy saying? Right. So after this, it could bounce into 41.70. After that, I think it should actually start to come back in. Uh, and the last time we bounced off of this number here, and this was not a good bounce level. I think it happened on Monday, I believe so. But this is not a good bounce level to happen. It should have actually come back all the way into its 100 on the weekly chart. So the 100 moving average is still waiting for that. I was expecting towards the end of the day, probably the selling to intensify, and probably we should have gotten this number. And now again, we did not get this number. It bounced off of that level right about around here, 4100, close to 4100. It bounced off of that number. That is still not a good thing. I think it needs to come back here, break the lows from Monday, and actually test these numbers, 40.27 or something like that, 40.40 to 40.20. That needs to happen. So on the regular candles, this is here 40.34, and on the Heikin-Ashi candles about 40.30. So if this starts to actually push down into this number, I don't think it's going to stop here, and it will actually push down all the way into 4,000, and it should stop somewhere around here, 4,000, 330 to 99, or 4,000. So looking at that, I think there is still a bit of downside to the markets, about 130 points or so. For now, I'm not pretty plotting all the way till the 100 moving average, but I think this is where it is headed. Might happen tomorrow. There's a very good chance of it happening tomorrow. Why? Because it's Friday and the contracts get cheaper. The option contracts get cheaper, and that means more volume. That means more liquidity. That means more volatility. And with volatility comes opportunity. And to the downside, this is still intact. And to the upside, and let's say if it starts to push upside, and this is where it needs to go. 4172 is where it should top out. Uh, so this is how I want to play to the upside. Not here, right in this chart. So my base case to the upside is 4139 as of where things are, and a good to have would be 4150. That's pretty much it. And should that clear, then we'll look for a 4170, 4177, whatever this number is. We'll look for that upside once this clears. And there is a bit of ammo here to do that, but with the market sentiment the way it is, I don't believe it's gonna come all the way in here. But there is a chance of it happening if it clears the 8 on the hourly. So that's the upside, and the downside we just narrated. Yeah, so still the downside is intact. 4124, and then push into 4060, rather 4100, and then push into 4060, then push into 40, this number, this line here, 4032, and then push into 4020. And if it gets all the way here, I don't believe it's going to stop here. I think it will continue into 4000. And let's look at the monthly, and this is where it is headed. And this is just how it works, right? So if you have, once the price enters this inner Bollinger Band, there's a very good chance it will gonna hit mean. Once it hits the mean, there's a very, very, very good chance that it's gonna come down and hit the lower inner Bollinger Band. That is just how the way things work. And this week has been very, 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 volatile. It has hit the 5 on the weekly twice actually, and it has hit the mean twice. It has come back down the mean twice. Now this is where it is headed most likely. If not tomorrow, I would, to me, the sooner it happens, the better, right? And the sooner, whatever this thing is, the sooner it happens, the better it is. So that's how I want to see this thing move, 40, 32 or something like that. That's on the future side of things. Now let's get into Apple. So this is a market mover, and we know this. And if Apple and Microsoft moves together, that whichever direction these two stocks move, majority of the market moves in that direction. These two occupy about close to 12% on the S&P side of things. This got way oversold here, and when started to bounce, and the market started to bounce along with it. This was a pretty decent bounce, $2 give or take, $2.50 bounce. Wow, cool thing. So now what? It is getting overbought here. It got oversold all the way here. Now it is getting overbought. So expecting a pushback into its mean around 157. Then probably will take a call there whether it's going to push up. If it does push up, I think this is where it should stop, 158.28. We will reassess the situation tomorrow morning. And if the futures in fact break above 4150 and push towards 4177, then there's a very good chance that Apple will open at 159.24. Let's see Apple on the 1 hour. We are very, very familiar with this pattern, how it happens, why it happens. Goes all the way up here, gets overbought, breaks at 5, breaks at 8. It broke this moving average here, the 200 moving average, when I went short the markets. And pretty much this was a given once it broke here. And this is where I exited the trade. And it continued to push to the downside. I was not participating in this trade. I was busy with something else. But yeah, majority of the people, I think, in the Discord took full advantage of this move to the downside, or at least I hope so. And yeah, this pushed from here, got overbought, And as soon as you saw the futures bouncing, and it started bouncing alongside the futures, the market bounced alongside the futures, it started bouncing alongside the futures. So that is the last hour. So let's see the futures 1 hour chart right here. This is where it started bouncing, right? And why did we get this bounce? Fairly straightforward stuff. uh where is that? I just saw that bounce somewhere. Right here, right here. So futures started to bounce right around here, and I think after that, the market started to bounce alongside the futures. So that's how that works out. And let's see Apple on the 4 hour. It has created a gap here with its the price is detached itself from the five. So I'm expecting this to actually push back into the five. So if the stock is so let's say if there's strength in the stock, so the price will start to move to the upside rather than the technicals coming back down. So if the stock is weak, then you'll observe the technicals starting to come down. In any case, I think my base case to the upside is 158.49. If that clears, we'll look for 159.21 and above. For now, not really plotting anything beyond 159.27. Although if it gets here, there's a good shot that it's going to hit 159.60. But definitely nothing planning beyond that. There is a dividend tomorrow for Apple, so watch out for that. The stock will open 23 cents lower from where it actually closed. So after that, I still think there's a bit of downside for Apple. Now let's chart how much of a downside that is. So here, this is where the test for Apple would come to the upside, 159.56 again, the 200 moving average on the daily. And if it's able to cross above that, then we again look for a rally into the mean, exact same situation that we saw today or yesterday. And if it's unable to break above this 200 moving average, then we're looking for a downside again. And the way that it will play out is right here. So we're looking for a push into 155, this number 154 or 155 again. And this number is coming from the weekly charts. So right about here, look for a hit of this number again, 155, and then push into 154.74. And if that breaks, we're looking for a push into 152. We should get some sort of a rest around here, and markets should take a breather. By the time 152, Apple will be hitting 152. I believe market would be at least 100 plus points to the downside. That's how I am looking at things right now. And I was in fact looking for this push today itself, but again, the moment look at that, Apple came all the way to 155, so it couldn't break this. Well, there was a good reason that it couldn't break it, but I was expecting a test of this number again towards the end of the day. And had we gotten that test of this number, then we would have easily pushed into this number tomorrow, 152. But I'm still looking for this number. It has to come back, and it bounced off of that number once, twice, and again, I'm looking for a test of that number. If it comes into that number this time, might be an ephemeral bounce, but after that, I strongly believe it will come back into 143. Now, all of this would happen if you have this number running up, which is the 10 year. 10 year topped out at 3.106 today. And I am expecting this number to keep climbing, if not today, but then I would still expect this number to keep climbing. That is just the way things are, things should be. In fact, I am actually surprised that it is where it is as of now. I would have expected this 10 year to blow past this 3.10 and probably hit 3.15 to 3.2. That hasn't happened, but I am still very, very positive that that's going to happen. So it is kind of hitting this number here. It has left it 5. So if it comes below here, around. So I believe this the last run, the last leg of today's run up was based on this number coming down from 3.10 through to whatever this number is. Actually, it pushed down to 3.03. That's not good, but according to technicals, it will come back here, right? 3.003, somewhere around this number. It will come back down here and test this number. I'm looking for a bounce from this area. If not, if it doesn't bounce, then 2.96. If it does actually break below 3 again, then we will see a intense rally in the market. Even if not intense rally, we would see a push into 4177, and then above that 4200 would be pretty much achievable. And why would that happen? Of course, one reason would be 10-year coming down. That would give VIX enough, enough rest. VIX will take a breather, and if VIX does in fact take a breather, like it should, if 10-year comes down, then short covering rally will come into picture. Shorts will have to cover, and that will in turn spark might spark gamma squeeze on options tomorrow being Friday. That's what I'm if in fact 10-year kind of plunges below 3, then I would expect VIX to take a breather, and then I would expect a gamma squeeze on the stocks. So that's pretty much would fuel the rally. Give or take 100 points rally might really be really possible. It's not that far. That 100 points rally is not that far away. Today, I think SPX moved close to about 175 points. That's incredible numbers. Those numbers are incredible. Just in case somebody doesn't know what that means, uh, you have to go back like what 20 years or something like that to see that kind of. I think in fact the COVID plunge. You have to go back to that time to see that kind of moves, better than 3% moves. So pretty. Some of the people got wiped out today. Pretty intense selling. Right. So let's get into SPX.
Darth, before you start, what's a gamma squeeze?
Gamma squeeze happens. Well, in gamma squeeze is where the options start to run up, even though the stocks are uh, stocks. So
Stagnant or not moving hard?
it's a short covering rally basically, give or take. It's a short covering rally.
Okay.
So gamma squeeze is when, just like short squeeze, gamma squeeze is when gamma gets into a squeeze and that runs really fast. So one of
Okay.
the example of that would be your GME, or that those things that ran right. That was a very good example of gamma squeeze, where gamma starts to accelerate really hard, and at some
Okay.
point, it will go and crash. That's
So that'll
so
come with the short covering rally.
correct,
Okay.
correct,
That's an effect of the rally.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
So right now, if you take calls, right? So
Mhm.
what has happened to calls today? They got obliterated, right?
Yes.
So if you held on to those calls, now let's say VIX suddenly starts to collapse, because 10 years starts to plunge and VIX suddenly collapses, then the stocks start to push up, right? Now the options that people bought or sold, in fact, the people sold those options. Somebody sold those options. Whoever bought the calls, somebody had sold those. And now when the stocks start to move up, they need to cover those options. So in order for them to cover those options, they'll start to buy at whatever price they could. If not, they'll come across huge losses. They'll have to realize huge losses. Tomorrow being the Friday, options expiration day, theta and gamma both would be really active tomorrow. So zero DTs. If the stock starts to move higher, then the options on that will move, or rather, very exponential manner. So that's your gamma squeeze there. Right. So coming back to our charting here, and US 10-year. Okay. So let's look at the 1 hour chart, and it is start. It came down all the way here, and in fact, I was expecting a push down all the way till here. This is the reason I was looking for that push down, but we didn't get it. It is what it is. We did not get it. It stopped right here at the Bollinger Band. Fair enough. The Bollinger Band is also a very powerful moving average or whatnot. So it hit that and then started to push up. But my expectation was, in fact, for it to. In fact, I think in my closing remarks, I did say that it needs to come back here and push, around here. If that would happen if Apple comes back down, but Apple did not come back down, and futures started to push up alongside markets started to push up. And yeah, so on the SPY side of things, on the regular candles, these two are regular candles, or SPX and SPY. These two are Fibonacci candles. The averages are still pointing down, by the way. So the green line is the average on the RSI, indicator on indicator. That is still pointing down, right? So it might be an ephemeral bounce unless the average turns around and starts to push up. I will not be looking, in any seriousness to the upside. I would still be looking for a downside. That doesn't mean I'm not going to play the upside, but here we know this. What does this doji mean here? The doji, that means the next one would be most likely to an upside. This is an indecision candle. Look for a push into this number because it has detached itself from the 5. So expecting it to push back into its 5. Fairly straightforward stuff. We do this thing every single day. So 4180 is still intact to the upside, but not really plotting that right now. So if I were to plot it, so 4126 is where the futures are right now. We're just looking for that push to the downside on futures, by the way. So where would that be? 41 right around here, right? So if you put it right around here, then there's a very good chance that the market would come around here for the open 4100 or 4107. And it's just a matter of time that it's going to go hit this number, 4086. So we're still looking for that. And this should not have happened. It If it were to have detached itself from the 5, then we would have been easily looking for this push to the upside and perhaps into its 8, 4156. So tomorrow, rather, if the markets were to open now, my base case to the upside would have been its 5 on the 1 hour, 4145. Should that clear, then we'd be looking for 4156. Right now, not really plotting anything beyond this, but in fact, if it clears this 4156 tomorrow, we'd be looking for a push into 4164, 4171, and most likely into 4181, or this number 4180. The mean is sitting at 4180 even. So if it in fact clears there, then we'll reassess the situation into 4200 right about here. So from and right now I'm not really plotting anything close to 200 right now, but this might come into being if there's a short squeeze. What does that mean? Again, 10-year goes down along with 10-year, then you have the VIX going down. Then if VIX goes down, vice versa, markets go up. As simple as that. So here it has created a gap between itself, the price and the 5. So 4180, again, this number is coming up again and again and again. So there is a very good possibility. So we need to keep an eye on this number, 4180. This is a 5 on the 4 hour, and also it's a mean on the 1 hour. So I will, of course, keep an eye on all of these data points, and I will have all of these data points in the commentary for you guys tomorrow as the session unfolds. So beyond that, 4210, not really plotting any of this stuff. Not really plotting any of this stuff today. Uh, right here, 4200. Perhaps this should act as a top, but right now, not doing any of that stuff. To the downside, we are still looking for that 40. If it were to be open, I think it is trading somewhere around here. If it were open, 4120 somewhere around here. So we are still looking for a push down into 4100. If that breaks, we are looking for a push into the Monday's lows, which is about at 4060. And should that break, we are looking for a push into 44,000. And beyond that, well, it's anybody's guess beyond that, but that's how it is. It should proceed. And let's take a look at this chart, which is very interesting to me. This is the number. I'm pretty sure every, or rather majority of the market participants are watching this number to happen. 4040 on the regular candles and about 4036 on the Fibonacci candles. And if it comes down here, I don't believe it's going to stop here. I believe it's going to go continue into 4,000. That's how I want to play the downside. Cool. Anybody, any further data points or any questions that you guys have, or anything that you want to share? All right, cool. I'll continue. Okay. Okay, so Microsoft. Should I go to Microsoft or something else? Well, let's go to Microsoft. Why not? Because this is another market mover. And right off the bat, I can see that this is where it will plunge into. 17 points down on Microsoft. This is not too far. This is pretty much, if there is a push down on the markets tomorrow, Microsoft should be hitting this number, 260. 17 points to the downside. Well, maybe hard pill to swallow, but it is what it is. Technicals are what they are. So let's see if we can refine that. Here is where I'm sitting. My base case to the downside is 273. My base case to the downside is 273 for NASDAQ. In fact, I wanted to buy these puts, but I did not get a chance to engage in these puts. I think I was speaking to somebody about this. I can't remember who, but yeah, I was interested in getting 273 puts based on this number, but I was waiting for VIX to give me the confirmation to go in, but I never got that confirmation from VIX, so I just left it alone. And again, I'm looking for this number to happen tomorrow, and this will happen on any given downturn. Microsoft will hit 273. This is set in stone. Should that break, we're looking for a push into 271. Should that break, we're looking for a push into 269 and perhaps 267. And if it breaks below there, then we will reassess the situation into 258 to 260 number. Not that big of a deal if the market starts to push down. And if SPX has to come back into 4,000s, then Microsoft and Apple have to do the heavy lifting for that. Just like Microsoft and Apple did to the upside, and then the same thing has to happen to the downside as well. That's how I want to play to the downside. And upside again, let's see upside where we can find side right here. So why are we looking at that? We should be looking here. And this is a big picture, the daily. So upside, give or take 280. Is that closer? Yeah. So let's see here, 281, give or take 281. The upside. Why? Okay, let's go down a little bit further so we have correct numbers. Right. So upside, the base case would be 278.21. Should that clear, and it has a lot of resistance that is coming from the super trend around here. So 278 should be my base case. Should that clear, it should hit 278, whatever this number is on the 8 on the hourly. If that clears, then we're looking for a clean hit into 279.50 and perhaps 280. So if it hits 280 and then 281.40, this is where I'll go short. In fact, I'll not go short, but I'll be looking for short entries around here, 281.50. Till that time, if Microsoft starts to push up, and then I'll be looking for the upside beyond this point, 278.20 or whatnot. To be safe, I'll say 278.50. If it crosses there, I'll look for an upside into 279.50 and 280.20, then perhaps 281. So if that hits there, 281 between 281 to 282, I'll be looking for a short or a breather. If it continues to break above this number, then most likely I'll continue with the long term, and I'll lose my shorts. So that's how I want to play a Microsoft. Uh, so upside might be I might be off on the upside, maybe 279 to 280, but the downside is intact. This will, in fact, on any given downward momentum, it will hit 270 to 20. This is set in stone. Cool thing. What next? We did futures, Microsoft, Apple, SPX. Let's do one more. Let's go with Netflix. So Netflix, everybody knows that in the last charting session as well, I mentioned that Netflix and Facebook, I think, these are particularly vulnerable to push to the downside. 140 is pretty much waiting for Netflix to happen. Might not happen today, might not happen next week, but this number will come into being from Netflix. For now, I think there's a good bit of upside because of short covering. On the monthly, it has created this huge gap between its next moving average and the price, or next major moving average and the price. So I think there's a good enough chance that we go back into that. But right now, not plotting that. Let's see right now. 243. So let's see 212. If the Why are we going all the way there? Let's see if we can get a workable trade. Okay, there. So workable trade tomorrow for Netflix is if it can clear its 5 at around 188.90, then we'll look for a push into 189.84, and then 191.20. So that's how I want to play this. And the new indicator that I've got, that is pretty decent. I think it has, because that is giving you short-term entries and exits. So that I believe is a very good trading indicator. Let me show what I'm talking about. Where is that chart? 3-minute chart here. So I was trading Amazon based on this indicator, equity, uh, then rather options. And I'm still testing this. I will give this indicator out probably after another little bit of testing. And if I want to make some modifications, I will make those modifications. The cool thing about this indicator, it is giving you the signal here, right? This red is a buy, red is a sell signal, the blue is a buy signal. And so let's say I went long. Let's say this is a short-term move, right? So let's say it gave me a buy signal here, and then it is telling me that these red dots here are where you want to watch out. If it hits this number, then there's a very good chance it's going to come back in. And I think this is a range it is giving me, right? It is plotting this range for me. So based on that range, I can take again, this is for scalping. So if I can take a trade here where the line is turning from green to blue, I can take a trade here, and the moment it hits this line, I'm out. Similarly, right here, when the line turns red, you guys see this, right? Blue and red, different color. So if this turns red, I go short or buy puts. And the moment it starts to hit here, and I'll start to paste my. So here's how it works. So if you, let's say if you went short here, and this is your stop loss. So the red dot is your stop loss. And if it turns and hits that red dot, you should be getting out. And this is another indicator that I'm overlaying on top of this indicator, and these are Bollinger Bands. So this is coming in very handy, very, very handy. So taking a trade here based on this indicator, going all the way down. Mind you, the stop loss is here. The stop loss is actually coming with it. So the moment it is actually hitting this, you can exit. If not, if not, it hasn't given you a buy signal anywhere here. You can continue to hold that. But if not, the moment it is going above this line right here, you can exit that trade. You can in fact put your follow this trail here instead of coming here with the trail. The moment it hits this line, you can exit the trade. You don't have to wait for a hit of this. So yeah, that's how right around here. This is giving you a buy signal again and going up again. So yeah, this this is a decent one, and I'm looking to fine tune it this a little bit more. I tried this for a few trades today on Amazon, and right now I'm testing it on a high beta stock like an Amazon. Probably tomorrow I'll test it out on Tesla, and then probably next week I'll test it out on something like an Apple or something which with a lesser ticket item. So yeah, I'll continue to do that, and probably once I'm done with it, next week I'll release this for everybody to play around with. All right, so that's pretty much it from my end. Anybody having any thoughts, any data points, any comments? And we will do this thing tomorrow morning again with whatever data points come forth tomorrow morning. All right, cool thing. So let's wrap it up here, and let's do this tomorrow again.
Oh wait, so I had one more question, Darth.
Yep.
So when you choose your contracts, I know you like do weeklies most of the time, right?
Mhm.
But how do you choose the strike? Do you look at volume or the closest strike, or how do you do that?
Right. There are few arguments to be made about it.
Mhm.
First and foremost is what kind of a trader are you, right? So are you somebody who looks at the Greeks and whatnot and then take a trade? If not, if you're like me who doesn't really care much about the Greeks and stuff, then I go by the price. I go by the technical. So if my technicals are telling me that there's a push to the downside, I would generally go if I am on a higher time frame. Let's say if I'm looking at a 1 hour chart, right?
Yes.
So for me to fulfill this downside, which I was trading SPX, so I would typically go out for about at least 2 weeks out, right? two
Gotcha.
weeks out, yeah, I pay a little bit more for that, but then I am not bothered about these moves, up and downs in the way. So I'm not really bothered about it. If I'm 2 weeks out, I don't really care. And then if I'm buying a put here, let's say, and this is going up, and if it's a zero DTE or closer expiration, this the theta will start to jump here. But if I'm 2 weeks out and I have my technicals which are telling me it's going to go down to this number, then
Yes.
I will hold on to that put all the way through here,
Okay.
right? And if you are scalping something based on this chart, this is a lower time frame chart, 3 minutes chart, then most likely would be a closer strike, cheapest option. So you take that trade here, and then you manage this stop loss based on these dots here. And the moment you see anything, like here, pretty much you could make the assumption that this would bounce because the charts are telling you that this is an overbought territory clearly, and it is hitting these dots here. So that will act as support. The moment it is hitting that, you can once more you can pretty much tell that there's a bounce coming. How far we don't know, so we don't really care. We enter here, we exit here. We are done with that trade.
Gotcha.
Yep. And even that trade, if you're entering here at the lows of this candle, around 23.22, and you're getting out at the highs of this candle, that is still a $10 move. And if you are getting a zero DT option here for the $10 move, that is exponential move. You would be able to at least capture 50 points, 50% on this move right here.
Okay. Okay. I see.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we'll do this, but stay in voice tomorrow. We will do all of this together.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try my best.
Whole thing.
So does that wrap it up, or is
Yeah, pretty much sharding is done, and now I want to be Hutch. If you want to kill the switch or no, I don't know.